Hi, welcome back. Our previous lesson was on the marginal rate of substitution. Today we'll be moving on to deriving the indifference map. So we recall from our previous lessons that we do the indifference curve by connecting several bundles that give the consumer the same level of satisfaction. Now, just as we connected bundles on the indifference curve U1, we can also connect other bundles to get other indifference curves, such as U2, U3, and U4. Now, the entire collections of indifference curve gives us what we call the indifference map. The indifference map tells us everything we need to know about preferences. Now, let's move on to things to note about this indifference map. The first thing is higher indifference curves are preferred to lower ones. In our example, U1 is preferred to U4. And then U2 is preferred to U1 and U4. And U3 is preferred to U2, U1, and U4. So remember that the assumption of non-satiation means that more of at least one of the good is preferred to less. So we can see that higher indifference curve typically have more of at least one of the good. Now let's compare two indifference curves to see this. So if we look at U1 and we look at point A on this curve, point A has maybe 5 bowls of rice and 2 bowls of pasta. Now if we move on to point D, even though it still has 5 bowls of rice, it has more of pasta. So because at least one of the good is more in a particular bundle, that bundle is on a higher indifference curve, which gives us a higher level of satisfaction. So because higher indifference curve means higher amount of goods in a particular bundle, those indifference curves are preferred to other indifference curve with lower amount of a particular good in a bundle. So this leads us to the conclusion that if a consumer wants to obtain the highest level of satisfaction that is possible, they will seek to consume a bundle on the highest indifference curve that it can. So in this example, the highest indifference curve is U3. So the consumer will seek to consume bundle J or bundle H or bundle I or any other bundle on this indifference curve. This is subject to the consumer's budget, the income, and the prices, and we will look at this in the next lesson. The next thing to note about indifference map is that indifference curve cannot cross. Remember that there can be an infinite number of indifference curve on the same quadrant. So in this example, we have just represented 4 indifference curves, but we can have several in between and several above and several below, which is an infinite number. The interesting thing is that though there are infinite amounts of indifference curves in the same quadrant, no two indifference curve can cross as long as our assumptions about the preferences hold. Consider this figure here with rice on the y-axis and pasta on the x-axis. Let's start with U1. We can see that on this U1 curve, we have bundle B and bundle C. And if we go to U2, we have bundle A and bundle C as well. By definition, since bundle A and C are on the same indifference curve, they must give us the same level of satisfaction. And then since bundle B and bundle C are on the same indifference curve, they must also give us the same level of satisfaction. So what this curve is saying is bundle A and bundle C gives us the same level of satisfaction because they are both on the indifference curve U2. The other case is bundle B and bundle C gives us the same level of satisfaction because they are on the same indifference curve U1. If the consumer is indifferent between bundle A and bundle C, as well as between bundle B and bundle C, then it's only logical to say that the consumer should be indifferent between bundle A and bundle B. But in our figure, we can see that this is not the case. This is because it's obvious that bundle A and bundle B are not on the same indifference curve. In fact, you can see that bundle A is on indifference curve U2 and bundle B is on indifference curve U1. In addition to that, bundle B has more of good X than bundle A. So let's see this. So bundle A has maybe 10 units of good Y and 2 units of good X. And then now we can see that even though bundle B still has 10 units of good Y, it has more of good X. Let's give an example of 4. Now, non-association tells us that bundle B should be preferred to bundle A. We can see that there's a contradiction here. Bundle A cannot be simultaneously worse off than bundle B as well as equivalent to bundle B. So we conclude here that the intersection of the indifference curve is inconsistent with our model of consumer preferences. So this is why we say that indifference curves do not cross, because they create a contradiction which is not consistent with our theory of consumer choice. So to summarize the properties of indifference curve that we have seen so far, the first thing we've talked about when we talked about indifference curve is that they have a negative slope. Negative slope simply means that there's a negative relationship or a trade-off between the two goods. So for instance, to get more of a good and still be on the same indifference curve, then you have to get less of the other good. Or in the reverse case, to get less of a good and still be on the same indifference curve, you have to get more of the other good. Now, the other property of indifference curve that we have looked at is diminishing marginal rate of substitution, which is simply the slope of the indifference curve. Now, this represents the decrease in willingness to substitute one good for another. For instance, at the initial stage at point A, where you have more rice and you have less pasta, this consumer might be willing to trade off more rice to get an additional unit of pasta. But if you move downwards to point C, where you have less rice and some more of pastas, then this consumer might be less willing to trade off rice for pasta. So your willingness to substitute one good for another good diminishes as you move along the indifference curve. Then the next property of the indifference curve that we have looked at is indifference curves lying to the northeast represent higher level of satisfaction. So if we draw our indifference map, we see that this is U1, this is U2, this is U3. Any indifference curve going to the northeast represent higher levels of satisfaction. So therefore, U3 is preferred to U2 and U2 is preferred to U1. Now, the last property is indifference curve cannot cross, because this leads to an inconsistency with our theory of consumer choice. So this is all that we have on our lesson on deriving the indifference map. Our next lesson will be on other types of indifference curves. If you enjoyed today's lesson, consider subscribing. Thank you.